I'm going to welcome everybody to Esprit Academy, our question and answer period. At any time, you can stop us and ask your own questions. Steph, would you like to begin?
Why don't you tell me a little bit about your school and how big the school is this year, and what your goals are, what the philosophy of the school is, that sort of thing.
Esprit Academy this year is very small. We only have 16 children. Our goal next year is to get to be between 20 and 25. Part of the reason we're so small is we have just begun, but we cater to a very specific group of children who are the gifted children or highly intelligent that also may have some other learning difference, normally called twice exceptional. These kids sometimes have a specific learning disability or otherwise they have a learning challenge such as anxiety or other things that are interfering with their ability to learn.
Great. And I noticed on your website that you talk a lot about individualization of programming for kids. Can you tell me what that looks like at Esprit Academy?
The individualized program is exactly that. Each child comes in, and regardless of their age or grade or what kind of school they've come from, we assess where they are in each subject, what skills they have, what skills they may be lacking. Many kids come in with sort of gaps in their learning, even if they're not maybe a year behind in that type of way. And what we do is we then alter our curriculum specifically for them so that we can build up those gaps and stopgap the areas and build a stronger foundation before we move them forward. This doesn't matter whether they're really strong in math, and that's great, and they move very quickly through math, and they do some, extensions and that type of things to keep them challenged as they do that. But maybe they struggle a little bit more in the language area. And what we need to do there is choose different reading materials, maybe do a lot more one-to-one with building vocabulary or how to write. Some of our children have some difficulty with writing, and then that skill is built up. But it doesn't hinder the speed of what they go for, say, math or science, if that's maybe their strength. So it's very much individualized. So even though we have a class of 6 kids that are aged grade 4 through grade 6, at this point, 3 of them are reading the same book and 2 of them are in the same math. Otherwise, everybody else is literally doing their own thing day to day, and they have lessons one-to-one if they need them, or we review specific things with each of the children as needed, even if we maybe have already done a lesson on it. They just need some refreshers, need extra help.
That's great. So practically speaking, how are you able to work with kids on such individualized programming? Because it doesn't sound like it's even just different program. It's really each kid has their own separate, individualized, sometimes very ranging levels from what you've just said. And how practically do you manage that in the school?
So first of all, that's one of the reasons we are smaller. Is because we want to keep our ratios pretty low, and we want to make sure that there's a lot of adults in the room sort of to help out. We have a registered teacher, and we have many TAs that come in to each of the classrooms and work with the kids, so that when a teacher may be doing a lesson with 1 or 2 of the children, the other children are working independently, as that's also one of the skills that we want to build, is their ability to work independently and work through a set of skills or activities that they have to do. But that TA is there helping first direct them to make sure that they are actually working and not, doing something they shouldn't be. But also if they get stuck on something and can't move forward, or if they need a scribe, or if they need someone to help them read through the question again because it's not making sense to them, they have that available to them. So part of our thing is just having the number of people available to the students to help them out is much higher than in a regular classroom, even at other private schools.
Okay. So then how do you work children through grade levels so that, at the end of your program, they're going into high school? How exactly do the academics work for you?
So our academics are actually quite high. Although we might get kids who come in with some gaps in their learning, or maybe they're years behind, we basically, by building up skills, we do it step by step. So each little thing that they learn, we only break it down into what is the next step they need to learn. When they're strong on that, then we build the next one. When they're strong on that, we build the next one. And this principle allows them to slowly build things up. And because we don't really focus on what grade they are in, but simply building these skills, although we use the Ontario curriculum as a guideline to what we want them to have an ultimate goal at the end of grade 8, it may not follow exactly with their grade. So if we have a student who arrives in grade 3, but they might be a little bit slower on reading, they've got some good math skills, but maybe they're missing one skill like fractions that they don't know. We want to build up those skills. And what happens is they haven't actually started on proper grade 3 curriculum at that point. We don't worry about it because we have multiple years to go through for them to catch up, and they're better off building that foundation and filling in those gaps of learning rather than moving forward for no reason. And then we find that when they have those gaps filled, they can move at a decent pace. We also go a little bit faster because we have lower number of kids, and because they're working independently. We cover a lot more material a lot faster, and our material is a lot more enriched. So because our students are gifted or very highly intelligent, they tend to go very deep into a subject. So even though our grade 5s are looking at the human body, just as other grade 5s may be in the public school system or at another private school, our students basically pick an organ system, they look through it, and we dig down deeper and deeper and get more and more information. Our current grade 5 is looking at some of the textbooks that we use for high school to look up how the thyroid is working. And so that's literally how he can do it, is he can go and be working at a much higher level, get much more in-depth learning about that particular thing. But we can do, and he spends his time doing that instead of a specific a curriculum that is set out by the Ontario Ministry.
Okay. What would you say is the ideal Esprit student?
The ideal student is gifted or highly intelligent. It's okay if they have some learning differences. That's probably good, that they fit in very well. Children with those learning differences tend to accept other children with those differences, and they don't, it means that the community itself is inclusive of everyone, so no one feels as if they're different. Also, we want students who want to learn, that they know that they have a challenge, they want to work through that challenge, and they want to learn. They're inquisitive, they ask lots of questions, and they are interested in the world around them.
And you speak on your website about twice exceptional learners. Can you tell me what that means for Esprit and how both sides of that learning profile are dealt with and taught to?
So a twice exceptional child is a much more complicated child because they do have the two-pronged issues in that they're gifted, which a lot of people, say that, oh, isn't that lovely? They're very smart, but it also brings with it learning challenges, what they want to learn, how they learn, how information is processed in their brain is different. The second part, the part that makes it twice exceptional, is that they also have some other learning challenge or learning difference. This can range from being on the autistic spectrum, it can be attention deficit issues, it can be something specific like dyslexia or dyscalculia that is then altering their ability to learn in a natural environment of learning. It then tweaks the brain in another way in which now I call it a hiccup or a speed bump that's in the way of them learning. And we then have to work around those and work with specific strategies depending on what those learning differences may be. What that looks like here is that each of these children is looked at as an individual. Although we have individual education plans, they're not as formal as they might be in other places, because each plan and each curriculum is designed for the kid that's there. It is already taking into account um, whether they need to go faster or slower on something, whether they need to use a computer, whether they need to have a scribe, whether they need to have somebody read something out to them so they can hear it, whether they need something repeated or written down. These are all different strategies that different children need to move forward and to learn, but ours are specifically geared already towards that child.
What kind of role do parents play at the school and in the program that's put together for their parents and also professionals who might be working with children as well?
So the parents are a huge part of the community. So we totally go by the adage that it takes a village to raise a child, and it also takes one to educate a child. That means that we have a community within the school with our teaching assistants, our teachers, our administrators. All those people help in the day-to-day at the school. But we also work on strategies for self-regulation, organizational things such as how to plan out a project, how to plan out your day, some executive functionings about organizing your own backpack, that type of thing, and getting what you brought to school back home again. But what it means is on the other end is at home, families, whatever grown up is at home with the children, need to do the same type of thing. So we talk about a child who has executive functionings, maybe an ADHD child who's very, very smart. If their bedroom has way too many things in it and they're expected to keep it clean, that's not really a reasonable expectation for them. And so we talk with parents about having a reasonable expectation and helping to set up the environment at home so that they can be successful there with the skills that they're learning at school.
Okay. And how do children move through, it sounds like a very individualized, great program at an elementary level. So what kinds of things do you do with students who are graduating to go on to high school and choosing those very, specific schools for those kids?
So we're in the middle right now of building some relationships with some different schools that are high school that would meet the needs of our students. So we work with the parents at this time of year, just as others are looking for elementary schools, that we're looking forward to different high schools. And we are trying to find an appropriate fit for them, whether it be back into a public school system or a different private school, and one that will support them in maybe those individualized education plans that they need. By the time they leave us academically, as long as they've been with us for more than a couple of years, they tend to be academically ahead in most areas, but they still may need support to maintain that advancement.
And for younger students, what makes an ideal child coming into, say, the grade 3 program? What kind of curriculum are you doing here? When I look at your website, I wonder if maybe there are some Montessori influences at the school. What kind of approach the younger students are taking?
Right. So I myself am Montessori trained, and we do use a lot of the Montessori pedagogy about following the child, ensuring that they work at their own pace, independent work, choosing of their own work. That type of situation is very much under the Montessori influence. The younger children, the grade 1, 2, 3 class, is closer to a traditional Montessori school. We do have some slight alterations due to the fact that we do need to lean a bit away, just so that those children with say on the autistic spectrum, who still at that age can't necessarily choose work appropriately for themselves, there's more scaffolding around those types of things for them to be successful.
Okay. And with such a small school, what does your routine look like, your daily routine? And are there opportunities for the kids to work sort of intergrade and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so in the morning we meet as a whole school. We're small enough, so we have a morning meeting, and these things can talk about maybe there was an incident of somebody being upset, and how can we help out our friends, and what other behaviors can we do to ensure it doesn't happen again. Sometimes it's something lovely like talking about we're going to have a Thanksgiving party on Thursday, and can everybody bring some cupcakes and some treats that we can share. Or it could be something, we've been recently getting into a lot of political discussions due to what's going down in the United States and the upcoming election, and a lot of our students are wondering what's going on. Or sometimes it's about social justice. We have a couple of students who are very feel that the Black Lives Matter movement is very important to them. And so they have talked about having allies in that, even if some of their other students are not Black, but that how we can be an ally to those people. So that morning meeting really varies day to day. And then we tend to go into a group discussion over history or science, something of a larger topic, maybe why we do things in science, why things have happened in history, how something in history has affected us today. And then we move on to basically more grade level things. That's where each of the children go back into doing work with the teacher, either with lessons or independent work that they have been assigned to practice maybe some math skills or some writing skills. And they have that for the rest of the morning. We do have some breaks throughout the morning so they can have a snack or whatever, but generally they go through, and we try to keep the work cycle for 2 to 3 hours open for them. And that means that from 9 until 12, we're doing the academic work. So we cover English, French, history, geography, math, and science in that time. Rotating, some days are history, some are science, that type of thing, going back and forth. We then have lunch for half an hour, where the students, there's a fridge and microwave here that they can all use. And then we go into recess, and we spend an hour outside all together. And one of the reasons that we do this is, one, we are sort of take the Montessori philosophy is we want to provide 3 hours of uninterrupted learning time, so that they can go through the work cycle and build focus and concentration, and build the ability to independently keep work done, and also actually get work done without interruptions. The other second thing is that for an hour, it's actually nicer that we can play games, we can go down to the ravine, and we need that amount of time to be able to actually get enough physical activity to be able to cope with and go through the afternoon. Each of our afternoons is a little bit different. We have sort of what I call a theme per afternoon. So one afternoon is drama, one is music, one is art, one is gym, and one is STEM challenge. And each of those, we basically spend the afternoon doing a lesson and practicing and working on some small assignment for that particular event for the day.
And can you tell me how students are selected to attend Esprit Academy?
So our general application is, first of all, you would fill out an application form. We would then have an interview. Generally this year it's via Zoom with the parents, and it's not a formal interview. It's just find out a little bit more about the student, find out a little bit more about the family, and do we think that there is a reason to move forward? If we feel that the student is a good fit for our school, if we feel the family is a good fit for our school, we would then move to step 2, where I would then meet. Again, normally this would be in person, but this year we're doing it via Zoom. We meet them and have a meeting with the child. Again, this is informal. It's not drill different questions into them. It's not can they fill out this number of math questions? It's not like that. It's very much, what do they like about school? What don't they like about school? What are their friends like? What activities do they do outside of school? That type of situation. This gives us a better idea as to whether they are a good fit for the school. If we go through both these processes and we feel that, yes, we still feel that that might work, they are then invited to come and spend a couple of mornings with us, socially distanced with masks on, to work in the classroom of the age group that they will be in the following year. So for instance, if they're joining us at the grade 4 level, they would then go into the grade 4 classroom. They would not go into the grade 3, even though that's where they are right now. They would spend some time with the grade 3s just so they know who the people are and their friends would be, but they spend in that classroom so they get to know the classroom itself. That's where our final decision is made, whether how they feel about the school, how we feel about the school, and at that point, placement may or may not be offered to the student.
And how do you stay in touch with parents? So it sounds to me like you're very high touch during the day with all of the kids, and you know exactly where they are in terms of the work they're doing. So like, how do you handle things like homework? How do you handle things like with communicating with parents if there are great things to report, but perhaps there are things that kids need to be working on at home? How are you keeping parents in the loop?
We use mostly email, although some of our younger kids are still picked up by parents. They don't go on the subway or they don't walk home. And so those younger parents, the teacher may come down at pickup time and just speak to them, especially if they want the student there so that the parent and the student can all have a nice conversation together. Otherwise, an email is often sent home. So if there's a little bit of homework, we don't tend to have a lot of homework because the kids work really hard. They work for 3 hours in the morning academically, really, really hard. They go outside, we do different things. And in the afternoon, again, they're focusing really well. By the end of the day, they're tired. And we would like them to spend their evenings being with their families, learning to cook, go for walks, that type of thing. But when they do have homework, that tends to be because they just couldn't focus that day and something needed to get sent home. And parents are basically sent an email with specific instructions on what the child is to do. The child is given the same instructions so that everybody's on the same page. And then that's brought back home the next day. So we also do updates via email at least once a week, sometimes more if there's something going on, such as a party or an excursion, or the children need to bring something in for school to participate, then other ones would go home. But generally an update is sent out weekly.
And I guess lastly, what do you hope the kids who leave Esprit and go on to high school or other schools take with them in terms of how they continue down their path of learning?
So we want the kids to leave here with a love of learning and feel that learning is something that they're never going to stop doing. It's not just about being in school, it's about something we do in life. And that we also want them to go out with an understanding that they don't live on the planet alone, and that they need to be part of the world and help others and work towards bettering what we have, and that they have a voice to do that they have a place in the world, that people will listen and they have the strength to do those things.
I guess there is actually one last question, and that question would be, are you accepting applications for this current year?
So this current year, we have a waiting list going for the grade 1, 2, 3 class. We need to get at least 3 more people to hire a teacher and get the 1, 2, 3 class going. Otherwise, there's 1 space in our grade 7, 8 class and 1 space in our 4, 5, 6 class. And that's all that it's available for this year, partly because of COVID. We have more room than that, but we're being very strict about our numbers so that everybody stays safe. And in next year, our major pushes for next year, where we do have a lot of openings across all of the grades, as we're hoping we won't have to have the same type of space required between the students.
Well, thank you very much, Jan. I think, and I guess parents can contact you at your email if they have specific questions, which is found on the school's website. I think the website gives a lot of great information too. and parents should feel free to reach out at any point during the year.
Absolutely. We always have even though our acceptances don't go out until February, we accept applications up until then, because we basically put them in order. If we have 10 children who would be acceptable, and we only have 5 spots available, it's then it becomes a first come, first serve basis.
Okay. Thanks very much, Jen. Take
Thank you.
care.
Have a good evening.
You too.